Hey guys, it's Dave again. I thought I'd show you my new setup. I decided to build a classic Bedini wheel using a 25-inch bicycle wheel and using the ceramic magnets. These are the C8s, inch and a 7/8 by 7/8 by 3/8 inches. I think I have one here. So these are the ones that everyone is using in the Bedini users group for their tests, and I wanted to get as close as possible the setup that I could. And as you can see, I mounted them on the wheel. I was very careful about the spacing. I took a lot of time measuring out the exact spacing for these, and the balance on the wheel is very good. You can see I mounted some tape on there across each magnet and tied it down with tie wrap to secure it, so it's not going to go anywhere. And this does run faster than I was expecting it to, so I'm glad I did that. When I tuned it, I was not trying to get it to run fast. I went for charging optimization. I wanted to get a good charging, which usually means a slower turn, but this thing still goes pretty quick, which surprised me. And I'm using my last setup from my previous video, dual coil setup. I've got two drive transistors, the same coils. The main coil is a bifilar 22 gauge drive with a 26 gauge trigger going into my main transistor to drive it. My secondary coil is just a single wind 22 gauge, and it's going into the secondary transistor, but the outputs feed, both of them feed into the charging battery. And right now I'm just going to use a smaller 12 volt as my source battery to run this and charge up a bigger battery, and we'll get it going here and see how it does. We've got both coils hooked up, and one thing that, before I do that, let me hook up my charge battery. And we'll get that going. And one thing I notice is it does not take much to get this thing going. It'll just start ramping up. It runs very efficiently. The wheel is off of my daughter's bike. It got kind of old and run down and wasn't being used anymore, so I rebuilt the axle, unpacked the bearings and degreased and re-greased everything, cleaned it up real good, and it is very smooth and hardly any resistance at all running. Runs very well. Kind of getting some light reflections off of there. And it's still speeding up. And I also mounted the amp meter to the source for the drive voltage, and just like my other setup, it's pulling about 750 milliamps with both coils hooked up, and it's already ramping up. I think if you saw at the beginning of the video, I think the voltage was about 12.55 volts for the charge battery, and it's already kicking it up, ramping it up. So the wheel is almost up to speed, and it's going to kick in my oscilloscope here. Top signal again is the trigger signal coming off the trigger coil right to the base of the transistor through about 300 ohms. That's what I've got it tuned to. That's what all my circuits tend to like. And the second channel is off of the collector of the drive coil, and been getting about 26 volts out of that in the pulse. Pretty strong signal. Top signal off the trigger coil is on 1 volt per division, so that's about 3 volts trigger. That's when the transistor turns on. You get a nice waveform out of that. One thing I also did have it showing me, it's kind of hard to see, but it's showing me the frequency of 1 pulse. So it's taking the time for 1 pulse to the next and just doing a 1 divided by that and giving me the frequency, and it's showing about 63, 64 hertz for 1 pulse. And I was figuring, I already got that up, so 64, and I divide that by my 16 magnets. I'll do that again. So that's right at 4, so I'm getting 4 cycles per second on the wheel. That's 4 revolutions per second, so that's going pretty quick. And let's see, my RPMs, that'd be times 60 seconds. So 240 times a minute, that's my RPMs. So that's pretty good, and I don't have it tuned for speed. I've got it tuned for charging. And we're already up to 1296, so it's doing a really good job. It's pulling little amps, but it's putting it right back into that charged battery, just like on my previous circuit. When I was setting this up, I did a lot of research on what guys were doing, how many magnets they were putting on their wheel. I believe the users group, the main one was 18. I had ordered 20 magnets, and I played around with the 20 magnets on the wheel and went down to 18. And I was having a hard time getting it to run really well and efficiently, and I just think there wasn't enough gap in between the magnets. So I went down to 16. I've got 16 magnets running on it now, and that seems to be what this wheel likes. I'm getting good clean signals. As you can see, my spacing is really good on the pulses. That means my magnet separation is just about right. I did spend a lot of time getting the spacing right on this one, so, and it's very well balanced, runs real smooth, and I'm really happy with the setup. Got some Delrin plastic, and I made the base, mounted it on the brake assembly here, and that worked out really well. And got my drive coil mounted up, slight angle to it, and the same thing with my secondary coil. And I haven't mounted this, I've just got it clamped right now, and I was playing around again with the tuning, and I did have to advance it again. I didn't have it magnet to magnet, which I thought would be how these would like to run, but secondary coil, I had to advance it quite a bit so that the first magnet hits here, and just as it's leaving that coil, the other magnet comes in to play on the drive coil. And I still haven't figured out why it likes to run like that, but it really runs well. And I'm going to leave it for now. I'll play with that a little later. But this is a screamer. It really charges and really runs well. I'm really happy with the whole setup. I'll just keep playing and keeping you guys up to date. Thanks again. Dave out.